Chapter 9. 192. So you don't believe us? Asked Ryder. Milo frowned and replied, To be honest, I studied science, so it's hard for me to agree with your explanation. I'm sent by your boss, so I don't need you to agree. All you have to do is take us to the site, said Ryder coldly. Milo nodded and said, I know. I'll take you there. But I hope you can obey my orders when you enter the burial site. Obey your orders? Asked Ryder while frowning. Milo nodded and replied, Yes, because the excavation of cultural relics is highly technical. Any mishap could ruin the historical relics, so I hope you may listen to my arrangements. Ryder looked displeased. He wanted to say something. However, Wilbur waved it off and said, I understand how you feel, so when do we start? Tomorrow, the local chief is causing trouble at the burial site. We must make a request for special agents to maintain the order if we want to enter the site officially, said Milo. Wilbur said when he heard that, That's not necessary, we'll head over now. I'll handle everything. You'll handle it? Milo looked at Wilbur calmly. Then he said, But the local chief is hard to deal with. The person in charge of Emerald Province personally gave an order that we had to inform him if we were going to enter the burial site. He'll send special agents over to maintain order and ensure our safety. Wilbur looked at Ryder when he heard that. He said, Call the person in charge of the Emerald Province. Tell them we want entry now. Tell him I'm very busy and I have no time to waste here. Yes, sir. Ryder took his phone out and walked off to the side to make phone calls. Milo looked at Wilbur in a stunned manner. He asked, Do you know what you're doing? That's the person in charge of the Emerald Province, and you're calling him in the middle of the night. Are you crazy? I'm being the most courteous as I can be. Otherwise, I wouldn't even make the call and head over to his house, said Wilbur coldly. Milo shook his head and said, I'm afraid your Department of Paranormal Research and Defense is not as powerful as you thought. I'm not sure about that. But I'm audacious enough to call your person in charge at this hour, said Wilbur nonchalantly. Milo did not speak. He felt like Wilbur was crazy. He thought that the Department of Paranormal Research and Defense was mysterious, but there was no way they could simply call the person in charge of Emerald Province. Yeah, right, he thought. However, Ryder passed the phone to Milo after a moment. He said, Answer it. Who is it? Asked Milo. The person in charge of Emerald Province, replied Ryder coldly. Milo took the phone in disbelief. He answered it. Milo, do as they say. I'll be right there. Huh? Milo could not believe it. That's all. I'll go over there right now. He hung up, leaving Milo looking confused. He wondered who the Department of Paranormal Research and Defense were and the status of those two people. He could not believe that they made the provincial person in charge rush over in the middle of the night. He wondered if it was too outrageous. Shall we go? Asked Wilbur nonchalantly. Milo was still in shock, so he slowly stood up. He started to gather his men in a daze. Soon more than 10 workers from the Cultural Relics Department got into their vehicles and departed towards the mountains. Half an hour later, the vehicles were at the bottom of a mountain. However, they were immediately stopped. Wilbur and Ryder got out of their car and stood in front of the vehicles. They saw over 10 burly men in tribal clothing. They carried machetes on their shoulders, and they were standing in a row, giving everyone fierce looks. Wilbur frowned and asked, What's going on? They work for the local chief. This is their territory now, replied Milo. Wilbur frowned and said, Ryder, go and warn them that we will attack if they don't move out of the way. Yes, sir, said Ryder. He started to walk. However, Milo quickly said, Don't do anything reckless. We can't provoke these people because the consequences will be dire. How dire can it be? Asked Wilbur.